best word. It's the best word ever. That's when you said you love me. I took it. And what I did. And for more. It's the best word I ever heard. That's when you said you love me. For what I did. And live forever. And for more. Tell me how I'm not supposed to live. Where am I supposed to go? You're my everything. You're my remedy. You are the song I sing and the air I breathe. You're my everything. Come to think of it, you're my remedy. You are the song I sing and the air I breathe.
Yeah, you are my everything. You are my remedy. You are the song I sing. You are the air I breathe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to everyone wherever you are to another edition of Liberia Rising with Sam-Abel. I say Liberia Rising works with leadership, with policies, and not politics without projects. Today I want to talk on politics without projects. Politics without project is leadership without policies. Leadership without vision. No clear distinction between important priorities and urgent priorities. It is like giving someone a platform to announce an agenda they don't have. That is leadership without policies and politics without project. And it's like this. We are the only country in the world, the only country that posts errors to position of privilege by accident. I always call it error privilege by accident. That is, we allow people in a position of leadership who don't know any other thing apart from themselves as to why they are in that position and what they ought to be doing. Every time I hear that someone is a leader, whether you're a pastor, a bishop, an apostle, community leader, you're a director, you're a supervisor, you're a minister, deputy, you hear a team, whether a local team, national, in a home, I think of a policy or a project. That's what comes to me. Sometimes I get so sick when I hear a lot of young people, I'm a politician. If you understood from a Liberia perspective or from a Liberian's perspective, you will never attach that word to you or use that word to describe you. Because in Liberia, politics has no project. It has no policies. It has no vision. It has no priority. It's like an institution used for hustlers. It doesn't bring about reforms. But leadership with policies and policies that leads to reform is politics with project. And a Liberia Rising can work when we have politics with projects and not politics without project, not leadership without policies. I want to take Josiah, King Josiah of Judah, as a biblical character. It's actually a long narrative from 2 Chronicles 34 and 35, but I want to take two verses from chapter 34. That's verses 2 and 3. He did that which was pleasing in the Lord's sight and followed the example of his ancestor David. He turned not away from doing what was right. Verse 3, during the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, Josiah began to seek the God of his ancestor David. Then in the 12th year, he began to purify Judah and Jerusalem, destroying all the pagan shrines, the Asherah poles, and the carved idols, and casting images. The first thing about Josiah's leadership was personal dimension of his leadership. He had personal policy. And what was his personal policy? He began to seek the God of his ancestor David. So God granted him peace because he humbled himself before God. It's a common practice in Liberia that people will cling to God while they are nothing when they seek position of leadership. As soon as they get into power, they seek protection, security, confidence. from something else apart from God. And it's a shame for us, the church and Christian community, who host programs, pray for these people when election is coming. You see pastors are having tirade and prayer and revival for people. Oh, this is the representative or senator God has chosen. And when these people win, they turn their backs. And when they lose, it's even worse. That should be a shame for us. These people don't have policies. They don't have principles. Their lives are not guided by anything. They're hustlers. That's why our nation is where it is today. And we often give them platform to announce some agenda they never have, they can never have. We're giving them platforms to make announcements they don't have at all. They don't even know what it means to be in certain position. When you hear what they say, what they think, what their priorities are. But Josiah didn't do that. When he got the position, he didn't turn his back on God. He sought God more. How many of us, when we get the position, we are too busy for God? We were faithful to the church, to prayer meeting, to Bible studies, committed. But when we got the position, we become too busy. And then we expect God to give us wisdom in place or position to succeed. Then when undermining, instability, insecurity begin to come in the office, then we run back to the church. We see the church as an instrument we can use to promote our own agenda. We don't really love God. Most of us, we just use the church. We become users to promote and advance our own agenda. So that agenda we don't even have. That's politics without projects. He first had personal policy, personal leadership policy, seeking God for wisdom, for guidance, for direction. When you get into position of leadership, what do you look up to? The next thing, there's a public dimension of his leadership, public policy. Restitution of the authority of the Lord in the national and religious life of Israel. Israel comes out of Egypt as a nation without laws, without rules. The first thing God gave them is the law at Mount Sinai. So throughout their history, they come to the place they become a lawless nation. They don't want to live and be guided by laws and principles. When this young man becomes king, then the next thing he does after his personal policy is that he reinstitutes the authority of the law, that the nation must be guided by laws and principles. The connection here is very important. Personal turning or personal surrender or submission to God is irrelevant if it is not followed by public actions. Many times our leaders claim the law of God, the fear of God, the deacon and deaconesses in their churches, in their institutions, but their public actions don't prove or match that. Their public actions. When their people cry, they say the voice of the people is the voice of God. How can you hear the voice of God groaning from poverty, from injustice, social injustice, discrimination, and it means nothing to you, but you claim you love God? Politics without projects. When leaders don't take public actions of reform that benefit the people they lead, they are not under authority, and their lives are never being guided by policies. They've all self-seeking flatterers. That's why they hate policy, because policy will discipline them. They want to be leaders. Policies and laws are not for them. Look at what's happening during this situation. They're blaming journalists. You're blaming journalists. You know how many people got a COVID-19 response on their car, masquerading the streets up and down, and then you're blaming journalists who are giving us coverage, giving us news from places we've never heard about. Have we not had those people? Liberia's greatest problem in the era of leadership is politics without projects. People get into politics, they don't have projects. And I hear young people, I want to be a politician. I want to be a politician. If you just know what image it carries in Liberia, from the Liberian perspective, you know, I want to be a politician. You don't have projects. You don't have goals. You don't have priorities. You don't have policies. There's nothing that guides you. You don't even know what you want to do. You just want a position to advance your own agenda. May God help us. No goal, no agenda, no priorities, no clearly articulated vision, but are driven by impulse, a sudden strong desire to act. We just respond to situation. It's not situational response thing. That's what we are. We don't have vision. Have we had vision? We would have been prepared for this disaster or this pandemic. We just want to be grateful to God that it is not like we anticipated or what is happening in other countries. Because you know what? We would have learned from Ebola and the team that was trained. Those very people, those agencies, those NGOs that work with government authority, we would have sought them out and we would have brought them to team up. But we just suddenly respond to situation with our instinct happening immediately. We don't have project. That's why we go after personality. Because if you have projects of reform, if there are things that you want to do, you are too busy going after them than to bother with what people are saying, or you don't have time. You wouldn't have time. But it's a pity for us, beloved, as Liberians. And the same thing is in the church culture. The same thing is in the church culture, beloved, that we don't have priorities. All of us want to be everybody. All of us want to be prophets. We want to be delivering ministers. We want to be apostles. We don't even know what God has called us to do. We want to set the standard for the word to follow when we ourselves we're struggling with standard. But beloved, here is the thing. What is the danger of politics without projects? It is leadership without policies. This comes from, you see, to have a leadership with policies, it comes from deliberate practice or deliberate discipline. It doesn't come overnight. You see, if you desire leadership, then you got to have some personal policy that impact your public leadership. You don't stumble over them in your position or think you can find it in your title. You got to be real and face reality. You got to come to a place where you face yourself every day. Hey, brother, that's yourself you're talking to. Hey, man, if you want to be a leader, you got to have some policies. There are things you could be struggling with, but you got to come to a place that you got to fight it. You got to deal with it. You got to handle it. That's why you need policies. That's why you need people to rebuke you. That's why you need people to confront you. And then you can accept that in humility. Because it's all for your own good. Because when you get there tomorrow, you set the bar. You set the standard for them to follow. Liberia Rising works if we have leadership with policies and politics with projects. If my video and other video continue to be an inspiration to you, leave a comment as to how we can improve or do better. But I look forward to a Liberia Rising with politics, with projects, and leadership with policies. God bless you.
Your presence make me smile. Give me joy in my heart. You teach my whole life and love upon me just a lie. You satisfy my heart and take away me from my life. Making my dream come true. You love me, yes, I love you. Together we are good. You care for me, oh yes, I just you. The love I taking you for me till I get explain. Capture my heart with you.
That's the New Image Gospel Choir of the Joyous Fountain Christian Center. That's what we do. Creating an environment that allows others to raise their own bar. That's leadership. We might not be excellent, but we strive for excellence. We strive for the best. Excellence is expensive, but it pays for itself. Beginning at where you are and striving to the place you desire to be. You my everything. You my remedy. When I look back, it has to be God to come this far. He's the air I breathe. I don't know why you breathe. You breathe in your money, your position, but I breathe the presence of God. He's my everything. Baba.